Today we're talking with Miko Peled, a former Israeli soldier who now advocates for peace, and he's the author of The General's Son, Journey of an Israeli in Palestine. Miko, thank you so much for joining us today. There is widespread support across the Israeli political spectrum for current actions. You're a real standout. Tell us how you see things at this moment.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I want to start off by saying that there was no Hamas terror attack on October the 7th. Palestinian fighters came out of the Gaza Strip, one of the most oppressed and poor places on the face of the earth. And after decades and decades of suffering, violence and brutality, not to say savagery, at the hands of Israel, and a cruel and unreasonable, needless siege on the Gaza Strip, they came out and they managed to almost take over half of what is Israel today, and to paralyze the state of Israel for weeks. And so that is I believe a more accurate description of what took place. The state of Israel was caught off guard. The Israeli military has been once again shown to be nothing more than a paper tiger. And now, because like a gangster that's been humiliated, they're taking their vengeance on innocent civilians, killing thousands upon thousands of civilians, only for the sake of revenge. There's no strategy here. There's no real understanding of how to solve. There's no real intent to protect Israelis, so to speak, to provide safety. It's not a question of self-defense. It's a question of brutality and revenge, because Israel was humiliated and now they need to prove a point, so they're killing as many Palestinians as possible, which, by the way, has not stopped the Palestinian fighters from continuing to fight. And they entered with ground forces just a day or two ago, and they've already got close to 10 or 12 Israeli forces that have been killed.
Right, but Miko, I have to just jump in. I mean, I need to make clear I see it very, very differently than you, and this is an interview with you. But I also just want to say, in terms of framing, when I have been watching the Israeli-Palestinian relationship for a long time, I feel like the underlying tectonics have been wrapped in a whole series of grievances and injustices. It's very hard for me to hear someone say these are freedom fighters, given the horror of what we saw on October 7th.
There needs to be. This is part of a campaign to always paint the Palestinians as a wild, uncivilized mob that will be children and white women. None of that is true. And many of the hundreds of Israelis that were killed were apparently now, according to Israeli testimony, according to testimony of Israelis who were on site, many of the Israelis who were killed by Israeli fire, by the Israeli military itself. So we don't really know how many were killed, if any, by the Palestinian fighters. As to the, of course, hurting children, killing children is a terrible thing. But I want to point out here that when Israel drops tons of bombs on residential neighborhoods, what do you think happens to the children inside these homes? Are they not? Are they not? Their little bodies destroyed? Do they not die from the gases and the fumes and the fire? And not to mention, yesterday we heard from Dr. Matt Gilbert that there are over 2,000 Palestinian children in Gaza missing. And what missing means? Missing that they're somewhere in the rubble and nobody can reach them. So that's even worse than the ones that have been killed. So the savagery here is not what we see on the Palestinian side. The stories of savagery that were perpetuated in the beginning were proven to be lies. We have seen a consistent policy of savagery and murder of civilians, not to mention of children, if you want to talk about that. I don't want to get too descriptive here. What happens with the phosphorus and so on when it falls on the small bodies of children. And we've seen this going on for decades. The Israeli savagery didn't start on October the 7th. It's been going on for a very long time.